I was watching a superhero movie the other day, and after witnessing villains destroying entire cities and heroes saving the world, after all that spectacle, I sat back and went, I guess that film was alright. Now, I am open to superhero films. Sure, they may not be highbrow works of art, and that's totally fine, they're not trying to be. But when the studios are providing such huge budgets and making so many of these movies, I think we're allowed to have high expectations. So I started looking back at my favourite and least favourite superhero films to try and see what separates them. And let's just say it's been an enlightening experience. For me, it all comes down to the phrase, let's raise the stakes. Here's what I mean. This is Max, and he's trying to head out of the house to meet a friend, but he can't find his keys. Will he find his keys in time, or will he have to cancel his brunch? It's kind of boring, right? So let's raise the stakes. This is Max, and he's running late for his big job interview, but he can't find his keys. This time, the consequences are a bit more severe, so there's more of a motivation for the character. Because without there being a lot at stake, it's hard for the audience to care about what's happening. But what if your characters are superheroes? Saving one person's life would be far too easy for the Avengers. They need a much bigger danger to tackle. And so, by the end of the first Avengers film, there are thousands of giant aliens wreaking havoc in New York, as well as a nuclear missile that's heading straight for the city. Now, I reckon there are 3 problems for the audience when so much is at risk in the story. Firstly, it can be very familiar. There are only so many times we can see a city being smashed up before we start thinking, yep, it's happening again. And secondly, it's really anonymous. When we see a building getting smashed up, we should be shocked. Presumably, hundreds of people have just died, but the filmmakers don't give us a chance to care. We don't see anyone inside, and it all happens so quickly. So there's a disconnect between what we're seeing on screen and how we're feeling. But it's not just superhero movies. Most of the blockbusters seem to be competing to up the ante. Jurassic World has huge crowds in danger, giant creatures fighting each other and destroying stuff. Whereas in the first one, basically all of the danger was focused around the few characters that we'd got to know throughout the film. And for me, that makes more of an impact. I think it takes a lot more to get the audience to care about a large, faceless group than individual characters. And thirdly, when the stakes are so high, I reckon it becomes unrelatable. Like take Pixar. They consistently write stories that are centered around relational, emotional conflicts. The characters have relatable problems like rejection, defying against your parents, and saying goodbye. So how would Pixar handle a superhero film? Well, in The Incredibles, they do give us the big fight scene in the 3rd act, and yes, some buildings get smashed and lots of people are in danger, but they don't really dwell on that. The big showdown and battle is actually pretty short, and the true climax of the film comes straight afterwards, when Jack is kidnapped by the villain. They've reduced the number of lives at stake, but it actually feels like a bigger problem, because it isn't anonymous anymore, and it's relatable to every parent and every child. That's their big finale, a smaller danger that feels so much bigger. And this actually reminded me of a study, where some people were shown statistics about how many kids grow up in poverty, and others were told instead about one individual child who was living in poverty. Then they were all asked if they wanted to make a donation. The people who had heard the story about the kid donated more than twice as much as the ones who had heard about the statistics. They even had a third group who had been told about the individual as well as the wider statistics, and they still donated less. So forgive me for using statistics to show how no one really cares about statistics, but it really does demonstrate the power of empathy. I think that's where a lot of these superhero films are lacking. They're telling us the stats of how many lives are at risk, but they're forgetting to really get closer and give us the relatable, humanized stories. And I don't know about you, but those are the stories that I want to hear. Before I go, I just want to let you know there's going to be a filmmaking event in London on the 20th of July at 7 p.m. So if you're around, then I'm going to be there, and the whole event is completely free, so feel free to sign up. There's information in the description. Alright, see you next week.